people with schizophrenia, when having a visual hallucination, if you look through a phone, camera, mirror, etc., does your brain keep the hallucination in the same place or no? I've experienced psychosis firsthand, and I can tell you that your brain will do everything to preserve the hallucination when you're having an episode. You won't be able to tell the difference between what is and isn't real, which is what makes it so frustrating. Visual hallucinations aren't really the most prominent symptom of schizophrenia. Also, hallucinations aren't typically like they appear on TV and movies. It's more common to vaguely see something out of the corner of your eye, like a glimpse of a bug, but it's gone when you look more closely. I think the most prominent hallucination I've heard of is shadow people and someone peripheral vision. Those are common with several mental illnesses, and I don't think this person even had schizophrenia. Much more common in schizophrenia are so-called negative symptoms. Delusions are also common. I know some people record the voices they hear on their phone and play them back. If it's just silence on the recording, it all was in their head. That's what I have been told. I was diagnosed as schizoaffective in my early 20s. Years and many auditory hallucinations and several hospital stays later, it's probably safe to say I'm more properly affected by schizophrenia, but as our balanced out treatment and medication, there's no real need to get all diagnostic tools running again. At what cost, and to what benefit? I never have had visual hallucinations, for which I'm glad, other than some vague glimpses of whatever in my peripheral vision. The auditory ones can make a Tuesday night in bed transform into, As the World Turns meets Phantom of the Opera in the hallways of my apartment building as quickly as a Maserati reaches 90 miles per hour. It can be that bad. The voices, I like to call them that now, have a tendency to come when I'm stressed out, sleep deprived or self-medicating, or a mixture of those three, as they tend to reinforce each other. When it's happening, they basically turn into my reality. I could initially not distinguish them. The weird part? They are distinctive. Some are female, some are male, and almost all of them sound exactly as people who are or have been in my life, friends, healthcare professionals, family, colleagues. Try coming in the next day after you've heard 70% of your team plotting to your avail, and 30% plotting your doom the entire night with an occasional stranger thrown in the mix. It's not in my head, it's actually in my ears, coming from distinct spots in my home, and yes, I've tried recording them to find out if they were real and for evidence. This only muddled up my thoughts, as the voices are not so loud as to blare through my apartment. So, is it just something the microphone couldn't pick up for lack of volume, or am I going crazy? But hey, there have been nights where I've called 911, like 15 times, because I was honest to God convinced they came out of real people, and they were not planning anything good for me. These days, I use the occasional sleeping pill to ensure me falling asleep without too many distractions, for it has happened, day and night time, but mostly nights for some reason, that my home turned into the theater of the absurd or some adult concoction. I mostly take them for granted and am even able to enjoy them as entertainment, for lack of a better word, for the grotesqueness of the scenes that are played out are a good indicator of their realness. On a side note, we, or at least let me not say anything categorically, do not have multiple shifting personalities, are mostly as harmless as we would be without hallucinations, and can be quite creative, albeit a bit hard to communicate with, for some reason. Also, some of us can actually function in society to fulfillment of its and our needs and wants. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I don't have schizophrenia but had amphetamine-induced psychosis once. It's terrifying because those beliefs and hallucinations feel real, and the belief is so overwhelming that you feel it has to be true. I'm super fucking lucky mine was drug-induced, so I had more control after the 15 minutes when I was coming down. When someone with schizophrenia is having a visual hallucination, it ain't like they're just seeing things that ain't really there. It''s more like their brain is mixing up all kinds of different signals and making them see things that don't make no sense. Now, when they look at something through a phone, camera, or mirror, it ain't gonna change the fact that what they're seeing ain't real. The hallucination is still gonna be there, but it might look a little different depending on how they're seeing it. So, to sum it up, the hallucination is gonna stay in the same place, but the way it looks might change depending on how they're seeing it. Yes, and number. It is a weird thing. Mine will just display something else on the screen that the blood and gore I'll see behind the phone. I have made such experiments with myself before, but in the end, the scene always wins, as I also start smelling blood. Not schizophrenic, I think, but have hallucinations pretty regularly. Yes, they are still there. They always are. There's a guy I saw on TikTok who taught his dog to greet people, and if he's hallucinating, his dog just sits there and looks at him, so it was a clever idea to help him identify if what he was seeing was real or not. Haven't looked at my phone or camera when I have had a hallucination. For me they are always in real life, particularly when I'm stressed. But I can say that even if you're not looking directly at it or even in its direction, you can still see it like any other real object in your peripheral vision, exactly as it would a real thing. While I don't have hallucinations, my coworker sometimes does if he's switching meds or doses. If he's having visual hallucinations, he will snap a quick video or picture. For him, it's the only way he can tell what's real and what's not. He explained once before that they can feel so real sometimes he's even sure he can smell things like their bad breath or feel it if they touch him. I don't know if it's the same for everyone, but at least for my coworker, they don't show up on camera. https://youtube.com/@schizophrenichippie. Cody Green is a schizophrenic man who uses his phone camera to test for hallucinations. His hallucinations will not show up on camera. Not someone with schizophrenia, but I experience some very severe hallucinations. I tend to have a lot of paranoia around mirrors, so I see people standing behind me in them. If I'm having a visual hallucination anywhere away from a mirror, I tend to not think to grab my phone camera. But the times cameras have already been up early before the hallucination, I do not see the hallucination through cameras. TL:/DR Not a hallucination doesn't stay in the same place when I look through a camera phone. I don't have these. I had an aggravated schizophrenic episode with untreated bipolar combined with heavy Adderall use, and it persisted through all mediums or was a part of what I was hallucinating within the phone computer. Edit. After hospitalization I went back through photos and emails and the things I clearly saw were not present. No longer schizophrenic, but sometimes yes, sometimes no. As I was getting better it became more of a memory. Like, I remember when I used to see X when I was here. Looked here. I mean there are many types of schizophrenia. It does, it's weird. I have full-on holographic room hallucinations when I have one. The day turns into night and only when the danger is extremely real and the oddball birds are trying to make me act up. My phone is a hallucination. I have schizophrenia and I don't like phones. Or TV.